Does sailing in the British Virgin Islands sound like a dream vacation to you? Can you just imagine getting your own sailboat with your friends and family and silently gliding across the water, looking at the sails and the tree covered volcanic mountains on the islands, and snorkeling in the afternoon, hanging out at the beach bars, maybe playing games or having a drink on the boat with your family and friends at night? It is an awesome vacation. So I am here to help you figure out how you can go sailing in the British Virgin Islands. So I have a number of things that you'll need to think through and a number of things to consider. First, you're going to figure out if you want to go on a crewed or bareboat charter. Crewed means you get a captain and perhaps a chef, so you have a crew to take care of you. And bareboat means you get the boat, a bare boat, and you sail yourself. The decision is going to be made on two fronts. One, are you qualified to sail a boat around the British Virgin Islands? Or second, do you want to? Maybe you're qualified, but you'd much rather somebody else sailed while you hung out with your friends and somebody else did the cooking and cleaning because you're on vacation. I don't think they clean after you, but they clean up the dishes after dinner. So decide if you want to do crewed or bareboat, and if you're trying to figure out if you're qualified or not, you're going to have to fill out a resume. And it's a sailing resume, and I recommend you fill it out both with your information and with everybody going on the trip. So I always fill it out with all of the sailing experience I have. The first time I went, I had not chartered a big boat, but I had sailed a lot on small sailboats my whole life, and I had been, water skiing and gone out in lakes with small motorcraft. So I filled all that out. I also always fill it out for my crew because sometimes my crew, even though they don't know how to sail, they have a lot of experience on boats, or they're small business owners, or they're in the trades and they know how to fix things. So I always put all that on my resume as well. Um, I think the barrier to pass the test is pretty low if you have any kind of sailing experience. So you fill out your sailing resume and you put all of your information and all of your crew's information, and maybe the charter company says it's kind of borderline or we just want to double check. What they'll typically do is send somebody out with you, and you may have to pay for that. You may have to pay $100 to have someone come out with you for half the day, and they'll just kind of show you the ropes for that boat, maybe give you a little test. One time we had to take a test and they had us, tack and raise the sails and put them down, do just kind of some basic sailing stuff to make sure that we knew what we were doing and that we were comfortable with the boat. And then a dinghy came out and got the skipper, and he went back and we sailed off. If you were to fail that test, typically what you're allowed to do is then pay for the skipper to come with you as a captain for the week. Hopefully that's an option for you if you end up in that boat. It's possible to put some additional restrictions on you instead. It depends on the charter company and how it goes. If you don't have any sailing experience and you still would like to do it yourself or learn how to do it yourself, I highly recommend taking a live aboard sailing class. I did this before I went and chartered a boat on my own. I took a live aboard sailing class, and you typically go with a few other students. You spend a week on the boat with an instructor. They take you around the British Virgin Islands very much like you would on vacation, but you spend your mornings learning how to sail the boat. And then you usually spend an hour in the afternoon or evening taking a test. And by the end of the week, you are qualified to bareboat on your own. And they actually send all of the students out for the evening by yourselves across the Sir Francis Drake Channel to Norman Island is where we went. And we had to sail across and grab a mooring ball and take ourselves to dinner and then sail back in the morning. And that was like our final test. I remember it being quite scary, but it was actually quite easy. So that's your first decision. Is it a crewed yacht or is it a bareboat yacht? The second thing you'll need to figure out is which charter company. And I'm not going to go into charter companies specifically, but I'll tell you some things to look for. First of all, if you're getting a crewed yacht, you have fewer to pick from. So you're going to have to search for which charter companies have crewed options. And a lot of them will actually pair you up with a captain and a chef, even if it's not something standard they offer off the menu. Then there are a lot of great companies in the British Virgin Islands. The two things that I look for are, one, are the boats good quality boats? Like, are they in good shape when you get it? And you can tell that from the reviews. You can also tell it from the age of the boat. I would definitely lean towards a newer boat and look for one that's in good shape. And then second, how quickly do they respond when you have a problem, and are they able to resolve it? You can ask them this question, and you can also look at reviews. There's always something that could go wrong when you're on a boat, and having a charter company that comes out right away and fixes it for you is invaluable. We've had numerous small problems happen over across all of our trips, and having a charter company that just comes out and fixes it right away is amazing. When the charter company doesn't come out and fix your generator right away and you were planning on having AC that night when you were moored, you might have a very unhappy group of people that night. So look at the quality of the boats. Are they new? Are they in good shape? And then how fast do they respond to issues? And then the other thing to look for on a charter company is where they sail out of. This isn't really a deal breaker anyway, but you might end up with a preference over time. So they might leave out of Tortola, Great Harbor Tortola. They might leave out of Nanny Key. There's numerous different places primarily on Tortola, the island of Tortola, that the charter companies leave from, and you may have a preference for one over the other, but I wouldn't make that your deciding factor. So now you know if you're going to do crude or bareboat, you know what charter company you're going to pick. The next big question people usually have is what time of year. And there's two things to consider on time of year. One is the weather, and second is the cost. And usually the better the sailing weather, the higher the cost. The worse, and I use worse like in air quotes, the sailing weather, the cheaper the cost. So high season is typically sometime after Thanksgiving, early December through March. There's very little chance of a hurricane then. The winds are really good. They actually call them the Christmas winds. If you're a first-time sailor going on your own, you might want to avoid the Christmas winds because it's a lot of wind, and that's a little scary sometimes when you have to learn how to reef and you're out in the middle of the ocean. So high season is from early December through March. Summer is low season, summer and hurricane season. So hurricane season is kind of June through November, with September really being the key hurricane season. So those are usually the lowest cost. The middle of the summer, the temperatures are kind of the same year round in the BVI, but in the middle of the summer, it's more humid and the water is warmer and there's less wind. The less wind to me is the hard part when sailing. You'll end up motoring a lot. The less wind means it feels warmer than it is. It gets kind of hot and sticky. The warm water is really nice. The water in the BVI is always warm, but I actually wear a wetsuit jacket when we go in November and December and January because it's a little chilly for me. To like snorkel, you're kind of swimming slowly. I always take a wetsuit jacket. So now you know, crude or bareboat, which charter company, which time of year. Weather's the same all year round with the wind and the humidity kind of changing things a little bit, and the hurricane season. And the next thing to look at is when you get there, what is your itinerary? What do you want to do? So I highly recommend, if you have never been before, that you sail counterclockwise around Tortola, hitting all the islands on the border. And I said you were in the middle of the ocean. You're never really in the middle of the ocean when you're sailing in the BVI. You can always see an island or land, with the exception of if you go to Anegada. If you go to Anegada, this is an island that's 7 miles long. The tallest thing on the island is a palm tree, and so it's really hard to see from far away. So if you sail to Anegada, you may lose sight of land for a while. It's only a 2-3 hour sail. But the rest of the time that you're in the BVI, you will always be able to see land, which is reassuring, especially for people that think they might be afraid of sailing or being in the middle of the ocean. So if it's your first time, definitely go counterclockwise. We always go counterclockwise. So you leave Nanny Key or Great Harbor or wherever you start, and typically everyone goes the first evening over to Norman Island. Norman Island has a big cove with a lot of mooring balls. It's very protected. It's a nice place to spend the first night. You can also stop at the Indians along the way and snorkel, and you can go to the caves where supposedly Treasure Island was written about. And then they have a restaurant on the beach, and they have a restaurant bar on a boat called Willie T's. So it's a fun place to go the first night. It's only an hour sail across Sir Francis Drake Channel. So if you get a late start, which often happens on the first day, you're waiting for your groceries, you're waiting for your wine to show up, your water toys, whatever you've ordered and asked to have delivered. And so you get a late start. Or maybe you found an issue on your boat and you wanted to have them fix it. You get a late start and you go across. Another big question everybody has is catamaran or monohull. Unless you are an experienced sailor and totally into sailing and into racing, get the catamaran. Just don't even debate it, just get the catamaran. Catamarans have a lot more space, a lot more living space on them. They don't keel like this, so they're much better for people that aren't used to sailing, which will probably be some of your crew. And they're just, in general, a lot more comfortable. They're also very easy to maneuver in tight spaces. Not that you'll have many tight spaces, but they're very easy to maneuver. And they're just really nice for vacation. So if you don't know if you want a monohull or a catamaran, get the catamaran. It'll be a little more expensive, but you'll get a lot more space for your money. Get the monohull if you're into sailing and racing, and a couple of you are getting boats, and you're looking forward to seeing who could get from island to island fastest. We actually ran into a couple groups of Canadians that were doing this one year. They were having great fun. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, get the catamaran. Once we got our first catamaran, we've never gone back to a monohull for sailing in the BVI. Next question is, what size boat should you get and how many people can you take on it? Because the number of people that you take depends on how much it's going to cost you. So the catamarans typically range, I think you can get a 36 foot from a couple of companies, and that will have probably 2 cabins in it, so 4 people. But most of the catamarans that you're going to encounter are going to be between 42 and 50 foot and will have 4 or 5 cabins on them. Note that one of those cabins will have to go for your captain and your chef. So if you are bringing along a captain and a chef, you have to give them a cabin, obviously, to stay in. Some of the catamarans have these little forward berths, like that you go. It looks like you go through the front cabins, and then there's a forward berth up there. It looks like it sleeps one person. Don't count on it sleeping a person unless it's a small child that is with their parents and is going to sleep in their parents' cabin in this forward berth. Or maybe you put all the kids in there, like 3 kids in there, and 2 sleep in the bed in the cabin and 1 sleeps in the forward berth. But I wouldn't put any adult person in the forward berth. Usually they have to get in and out through the cabin or through a little hatch in the ceiling, and it's pretty small. And to get AC, you have to leave the door open, and I just wouldn't put anyone on vacation in the forward hatch, in the forward cabin. So you usually have 4 to 5 cabins, so that means you can take 8 to 10 people. The charter companies will usually let you put a couple people in the salon usually the table makes into a bed. I wouldn't do that, but it's an option if you're trying to save money. How do you eat on a boat? It's called provisioning. You provision your boat. You buy groceries for your boat. What I would recommend, sometimes you can buy a package through the charter company and they will provision it for you and they'll decide what you need and they'll put it all in the boat for you. I would recommend just going with one of the grocery stores in the British Virgin Islands that delivers and ordering your groceries ahead of time, telling them what charter company you're on, what boat you're on, and they will deliver the groceries to your boat. You can usually get all of your alcohol through the grocery store as well. If not, some liquor stores also deliver. There's a lot of questions about what food to bring and how much drinks to bring. There's some guidelines, like usually it's a gallon of water per day per person. That has always been way too much for any group I'm on. I recommend buying half of that. I also recommend buying half of the fruits and vegetables and any perishable foods like bread up front. And then halfway through the trip, you'll probably be around Virgin Gorda. And in Virgin Gorda, there's a couple of nice grocery stores. And you can go in and buy more fruits and vegetables, more water if you need it. Anything that you forgot, you can stock up there. So I would buy half the water they recommend and half the fruits and vegetables and then stock up in Virgin Gorda. And maybe there's something you've really been thinking about, or maybe you decided to eat out every night instead of eating out half the nights and now you have twice as much food. A lot of people also prepare food at home and then vacuum seal it and freeze it and bring it with them. You are supposed to declare that when you go to the British Virgin Islands. You'll probably have a cooler that you took on the airplane. They don't charge a lot of money for bringing it in, but that way you could make like a enchilada casserole that you just popped in the oven, or maybe you like to marinate your steaks. Any kind of thing you could prepare at home and season at home and vacuum pack and freeze might make it just that much easier to have dinner on the boat, or an easy lunch. On the boat, you will have an oven and a stovetop and a grill. You cannot use the grill while you're sailing, but you will typically sail every morning, from like 9 or 10 or whenever you get going until probably early afternoon. So then you could have a late lunch or you could use the grill at dinner time. So now we've talked about if you're going by yourself or if you're getting a captain. And I didn't tell you, for the crewed yachts, there are some companies that will rent you or book you in just one cabin. So if there's just two of you that want to go and you don't have money for the whole boat or don't want to sail by yourself, it is an option just to get a cabin in a crewed catamaran. So you've decided crewed or bareboat. You've decided charter company, you've decided how to get your groceries, you've worked out your itinerary and who's going with you. What's left is just to get there and have a good time. So there's a number of ways you can get there. The two main ones are fly into St. Thomas in the US Virgin Islands and take a ferry across. The ferry takes like an hour. It's very easy. It's a short cab ride from the airport to the ferry dock. It's super easy. It's a beautiful ferry ride. You can sit up top and enjoy all of the islands as you cruise past them. The other option is to fly straight into Tortola. This has become a lot easier lately because American Airlines now has a flight directly from Miami to Tortola. So fly into St. Thomas, take the ferry or a private water taxi, or fly into Tortola directly and take a taxi to your charter company. So go, enjoy, have a great time. If you have any other questions, please let me know in the comments and I can do another video to address them, or I can just answer them in the comments. But I hope you have an amazing time. We've been going regularly for 20 years and we really love it. It's a great adventure, whether you go with family or you go with friends, or you get one of those cabins in a crewed yacht with others that will become your new friends. So enjoy planning. I also have a video on packing if you'd like to see what to pack, and have a great time. Let me know what questions you have.